You can say anything about Taylor, but this is a power move. Hello WBB, back to our channel, my beautiful people. Today I'm reacting to something really new on this channel, Taylor Swift. More specifically, the rise and fall and rise again of Taylor Swift. Now let me tell you, first of all, I know nothing or really little stuff about Taylor Swift. I just know a couple of her songs that are like commercial on radio. For example, Shake It Off, Blank Space. And I remember like years ago, I would listen to this song and watch the video. You belong to me. Like, this is the first song I've heard from Taylor Swift, and I think she changed styles a lot of like her music. So why I decided to react to her is because I recently created Twitter and like people are crazy about her. I'm gonna be honest, I think I never gave her opportunity. Yeah, let's just be honest here, I never gave her opportunity, really. You could say I don't really know anything about Taylor Swift, which is like something rare, I suppose. But let's just go into this video. We'll see what we'll get. I wanted to first to know something about her, because when I know something about an artist, I can understand better their lyrics and connect more with their music. Let's just put it like that. But before we go into this video, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when I post. Also follow me on Instagram, Twitter. I'll interact with you and take your recommendations. I also have a Patreon now, so if you could support me there, I would really appreciate it. You will get extra content and also decide on what extra content should I put out. Let's hear Taylor Swift. Oh, and this is from Pop Ghost. So thank you, Pop Ghost. I'm gonna link the original video down below.
Taylor Swift has been in the public spotlight for over a decade, a defining figure of the 2010s, famous for both her romantic story-focused lyricism and the mass media speculation of her personal life. Her career in recent—
Just a pause. I love that video because I remember I was like teen, I was little, and it was just so romantic, and I was like, and it was like a pop country song. I remember this.
Recent years has gone through a bit of a tumultuous period, and now that that period seems to be over, I'd like to dive into why it happened and analyze how she's managed to come back from it.
Okay.
But I'll start with an unnecessary introduction.
Not for me. For me, it's pretty good.
Taylor Swift is the definition of a household name, so it feels properly ridiculous to be giving her an introduction, but I'll give a quick one just in case.
Please.
Taylor Allison Swift is a pop-based musician and songwriter. She was born in Pennsylvania in December of 1989 and moved to Nashville at age 15 to pursue a career as a country artist.
Okay.
Her self-titled debut album was released 2 years later under Big Machine Records and peaked at number 5 on the Billboard charts. Since then, she's gone on to release 7 more full-length albums, all of which have peaked at number 1. I don't really know or care about the Billboard charts, and I don't pretend to, but I think that's kind of a big deal. Now that the formalities are out of the way, let's talk about the initial rise.
The initial rise.
With a solid and growing discography and a likable public persona, Taylor Swift was on her way to conquering the music industry, one country pop jam at a time. Her song You Belong With Me off her second album was a huge success, so much so that it won her a VMA. And I think you know what happens next.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
I disagree.
If it's one thing that I know about Taylor or anything regarding her is this moment. Okay, this, I know of this, right?
Agree with the idea that this made Taylor famous. She was already famous, obviously, otherwise she wouldn't have been winning a VMA.
Yeah, everybody watched You Belong to Me.
I was in elementary school going hard to Love Story and Our Song at the time, and I remained completely unaware of Kanye West. Well, outside of that one scene from Shark Tale. But it is important to note that Taylor generated a lot of positive PR from this incident. Taylor came out looking like a sweet, delicate, wounded bird, and Kanye came out looking like a jackass. Those are President Obama's words, not mine. At this time, she was mostly regarded as a sort of America's sweetheart figure, but Taylor Swift didn't receive her bad reputation, if you will, overnight. It was a progressive fall.
Really?
For the most part, early in her career, Taylor was generally liked. She was very palatable to a wide range of people, but there is one thing that she has always been heavily criticized for: her dating life. Through the eyes of 2020, it may seem ridiculous, but from 2008 up until—
This is the second thing I know, but vaguely. I just know that this thing with Taylor was she's dating a lot of men. This is just like, I'm not saying that, don't get me wrong. I know that media was like portraying her as dating a lot of men or something. And I'm a Harry Styles fan, so I know that they like were together. But this is not about him, so...
Her her dating life. Through the eyes of 2020, it may seem ridiculous, but from 2008 up until relatively recently, people were very critical of Taylor, both for dating other celebrities and also for writing songs about her relationships with them. She was called a serial dater, and the media began slowly but surely painting a picture of her as someone who dated anyone and everyone, and then wrote mean-spirited songs afterward to defame them. This perception prevailed even as her music continued to grow in popularity. With the release of her 2014 album, 1989, Taylor reached an all-time height of fame after making a successful transition from country to mainstream pop. Slowly but surely, the public perception of Taylor Swift began to change. There were some genuine and valid critiques, such as people using her music video for Shake It Off as an example during conversations about white artists capitalizing off of twerking. A lot of criticisms about Taylor were race-based, but not necessarily because of anything she personally did, but because people were, in general, tired of the trope of the innocent white woman. When she began speaking up about the way she had been slut-shamed, she was called a white feminist with a victim complex. But outside of those issues, people also began to regard Taylor as fake. She was criticized for her highly publicized girl squad. She was criticized for her body and thinness. She was criticized for making pop music. She was called performative when she discussed sexism and LGBTQ+ rights, yet also criticized for not being politically outspoken enough, with many people assuming she was an undercover conservative. Her romantic relationships were scrutinized even further. She was labeled as petty, vindictive, and cold-hearted.
Right. Oh, that is really big to actually say. This is important. I didn't know she was like, they really went onto her. Like, those are some heavy words. And the thing about writing about her exes, I mean, if she's a songwriter, of course she's gonna write about her experience. So I don't know. Whoa. The thing is, she was becoming popular, so people were like, no.
The fall of Taylor Swift was a slow descent, ending in an abrupt crash.
The crash.
In February of 2016, Kanye West released his song Famous, featuring the infamous lyrics,
"I feel like me and Taylor might still have sex."
After a strong negative reaction from Taylor's friends and fans, Kanye released a statement saying that Taylor approved of the song. Taylor's reps stated, quote, Kanye did not call for approval, but asked Taylor to release his single Famous on her Twitter account. She declined and cautioned him about releasing a song with such a strong misogynistic message. Taylor was never made aware of the actual lyric, I made that bitch famous, end quote. Taylor then went on to win the Grammy for Album of the Year, where she made thinly veiled comments about the situation. Kanye West's wife, Kim Kardashian...
Okay, just a second. I've heard a little bit about this whole thing with recordings, so this is really informative for me. Kim did something, right?
She then released a video onto Snapchat that appeared to show Taylor indeed approving the song. Taylor released a statement saying that she never heard the full song and that she was offended by being called that bitch. And then she delivered her infamous line,
I would very much like to be excluded from this narrative.
I brought up earlier that a lot of the disdain for Taylor Swift was based on racial politics. I say this because her conflict with Kanye West painted her as a white woman using her privilege and lying to villainize a black man for her own gain. I'd like to point out here that this does happen frequently in our society. The most recent public example that comes to mind is the Amy Cooper situation, wherein a white woman was walking her dog and called the police on a black man for simply telling her the dog needed to be on a leash. She then pretended that the man was assaulting her or threatening her to the 911 operator. This is a scenario that happens all too often where white women will use the racial stereotype that black men are aggressive or dangerous to their advantage. I wanted to bring this up because I think it's important to acknowledge that this is a societal issue that ties to the overarching issue of systemic racism. And I do believe that many people who were angry with Taylor Swift at the time were acting on the belief that she was genuinely lying and villainizing Kanye West as a black man as her own publicity strategy. And if that were the case, which it appeared to be at the time based only on Kim Kardashian's video, that was a valid stance to take. However,
okay, me as a white person, I always feel that I shouldn't really judge things like that because I'm the privileged one, so, you know. But it's just a little, to me that it's Kanye, right? He's a particular man, and I mean, at the end of the day, I can't really judge the situation because I don't know it. So I'm just gonna keep watching this. But I just want to point out here that this could also be a matter of sexism. So, you know, which take to take in this situation? It's tricky. I don't know how this was presented in the media and how things were going. But as I see and know about Kanye, I don't know if he's the victim, really. Let's just watch this.
Recently, the full video of Kanye and Taylor's conversation was leaked by an unknown source, and the conversation does give more credibility to Taylor's statement. In the video, he tells her two different versions of the same line. One going,
I feel like Taylor Swift might owe me sex.
And the other, which he ended up going with,
I feel like me and Taylor might still have sex.
To which Taylor said the former would cause more feminist outcry. He also said the line,
What if later in the song, I was also to have said, I made her famous? Is that,
Did she say that?
Yes, it might have happened.
Oh, God. Well, what am I going to do about it?
Like that, do the hair flip?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like whatever at this point.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's just you got to tell a story the way that it happened to you and the way that you experienced it. Like, you honestly didn't know who I was before that. Like, it doesn't matter if I sold 7 million of that album before you did that, which is what happened. I mean, I need to think about it because I just need to, like, you know, you hear something for the first time and you just need to think about it.
Yeah.
Because it is absolutely crazy. I'm glad it's not mean, though. It doesn't feel mean. But, like, oh my God, the build-up you gave it, I thought it was going to be like, that stupid, dumb bitch. Like, but it's not.
I think this is the most telling moment of the video because
This was... So, I don't know Taylor, right? But this was kind of heartbreaking to, like, listen to because you could hear and feel how uncomfortable she was in that situation. The fact that she even gave him opportunity after he did what he did. And, okay, so first of all, I made her famous. Like, even that alone line is awful. Like, how do you mean you made her famous? Are you taking credit for her work? For her talent? Like, that's awful. And then adding the bitch word. Like, her reaction, honestly, it's so relatable. You can sense she was, like, under shock, didn't know how to react, how to respond. She was probably thinking, oh, if I say no, yeah, then I'm gonna be the bitch, right? You know, diva. So she was, like, trying to... didn't really know, and she was young, inexperienced. When you are young, it's difficult to say like no, and I think it was so difficult for her. She even said it's like your experience, you should write what you think happened from your point of view. She was being so nice at the end of the day, if you think about that. Like, imagine if the position were reversed. It's ridiculous to think about the... But you know what I'm trying to say, right? That conversation was awful, honestly. I feel for her. I feel for her in that situation.
Moment of the video because it does corroborate her story that she never heard the one line that offended her. She also asks to be sent the finished song. The full video is over 20 minutes long and you can go watch it on YouTube if you'd like.
I'm so glad the
Based
video
on the
came
new
out.
Evidence that the narrative of Taylor purposefully victimizing herself sort of falls flat. Many people laughed at the idea that she would be so offended by being called a bitch, but after almost a decade of slut-shaming and specifically saying that she didn't want to be called that word, I can see why she would have such...
Why? Why would that be ridiculous? Oh, I don't want to be called a bitch in a song that will remain forever? It's like disrespectful. Why is this... I'm just gonna get mad right now. By the way, she looks... good.
why she would have such a strong reaction to the song. While the conversation about the dynamics of power when it comes to racial injustice is incredibly important, it's also important to discuss how power dynamics are shaped by misogyny. And it's no one's right to tell a woman how to react when she's called a misogynistic name by a man, and then has to hear it repeated and applauded by that man's fans. Now, this may be a controversial take, but I do think it's entirely possible that this was initially a case of miscommunication. Kanye did call her for permission, and Taylor did approve part of the lyric and seemed receptive to being sent the song. On the flip side, Taylor did not hear all of the lyrics, denied launching the song, and was never sent the completed version. I think it's possible that both parties thought they were correct. But whether this was a case of simple
I'm not sure about that. Not sure about that. I think Kanye knew what he was doing. I think he knew exactly what he was doing, in what situation he put Taylor. They recorded it, you know, they published like specific parts. It's, I don't think there were like any good intentions with Kanye in this case. I'm sorry, I don't know. This is my take in the situation as far as I know. But you'll tell me your thoughts.
I think it's possible that both parties thought they were correct. But whether this was a case of simple miscommunication between two artists or something intentionally nefarious, it didn't matter. Even if Taylor did have a solid defense for herself, it didn't matter. The damage had already been done. Hashtag Taylor Swift is over party was trending worldwide. Taylor's social media was flooded with snake emojis.
Kim. Women supporting women.
Memorials of Taylor Swift's career were painted, and Taylor herself seemed to disappear entirely off of social media for a year. It wasn't until August of 2017 that she would make her comeback. Taylor made her return to social media with a video of a snake. She immediately followed that up with the drop of her single, Look What You Made Me Do. Her sixth album, Reputation, followed 2 months later. While the initial single release...
No way she did that. Wait a minute. So Kim called her snake? No way. No. Kim called her a snake and she came back and her concept was a snake? You can say anything about Taylor, but this is a power move. This is a power move. What a legend. What a queen. I can't believe this. Instead of, like, that's not how you would respond normally, because, okay, now that people have seen that and, you know, Taylor has done it and people are like, yeah, exactly. But you wouldn't thought of this. If someone had called you snake, you would try to be like, no, I'm not a snake. What do you mean? And try to be all, you know, completely opposite of what people called you, of what they thought you are. So you would try to give a completely different image. But Taylor was like, nah, okay, you call me snake? Okay, I'm gonna be snake, but I'm gonna be the snake, you know, the queen of the snakes. And she went with irony into this, a great marketing strategy, and that was like the biggest you into their faces. Like, now I'm making millions from that concept, so you thought I was going down? No, I rose. I rose from that. I'm gonna make you pay for this. That's the best thing from this video. That's the best thing I've heard in a while. To do that. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad and I applaud her. And this whole concept seems so good.
The single release was controversial and garnered some social media criticism. The album was ultimately a massive success. It peaked at #1 and yielded her first all-stadium tour with 2.8 million in attendance. Reputation was widely regarded as Taylor Swift's comeback album. She brought a new sound to the table, a new attitude, a new outlook on the world, but with the same classic Taylor Swift songwriting. I think with this album, most people, myself included, came around and developed not only an appreciation for her music, but specifically a respect for her ability. It's a rarity in the mainstream pop world to see artists have such an all-encompassing creative control of their own work. While most pop artists are vocalists first and foremost, Taylor truly shines in her songwriting, which I think is mainly responsible for the tremendous support she received when she spoke up about her former record label selling her masters to Scooter Braun. All artists should have ownership over their work, but it seems exceptionally heinous to take that ownership from an artist who is known for their creativity. No matter what your opinion on
she looks so good every time.
She's adept at adapting, at staying relevant. Time after time, she sheds her skin and emerges as someone who somehow seems new and fresh while staying familiar. If I had to describe the key to Taylor's success, it would be this. She is the queen of the pivot. Taylor Swift is a master at pivoting, at taking what she's built and twisting it until it seems new. At the beginning of this video, I described her as a pop-based musician. I say this because all of her music has elements of pop, some more than others, but all with a little bit. Her debut album was her most country album. She had a song called Tim McGraw and a voice like she grew up in the deepest depths of Alabama. For her first 3 albums, she slowly turned up the pop and shed layers of country until by 1989 she was a full-fledged pop star. When she was cancelled, she used the iconography of a snake, an image that once spammed her comments all over the album and tour iconography and merchandise. She turned the weapon against her character into a marketing campaign. She regularly writes songs from a warped perspective to satirize the media portrayal of her, and when she'd played out the dark and edgy aesthetic of Reputation, she came back with rainbows and butterflies. And now here we are in the summer of 2020. Taylor is once again #1 in the charts, but this time with Folklore, an alternative indie folk-inspired record. After years of highly produced pop music, she delivered an emotional, lyric-focused, cottagecore acoustic-ass certified chill fest. So, in conclusion,
I was starting to get on Twitter when Folklore came out and everybody went crazy. I swear to God, everybody was like going crazy, and I said like, I want to listen to, but I know I have to react on my channel. So I can't wait to hear Folklore. Taylor is like powerful. Taylor is a bad bitch and you cannot kill her. Yeah, I can see that.
Taylor Swift is pop culture's phoenix. Every time she disappears, she is reborn from the ashes of her previous self.
What is this, her being in a blue dress? I'm looking at this parts, at a lot of parts, but this looks so good. What is this music video?
Sometimes it's subtle, like Speak Now to Red, and sometimes it's in a flash of light, like a snake exploding into 1,000 butterflies. But it's always a spectacle. It's always fascinating and surprising and delivers exactly what we need at the time. And I, for one, will be anxiously awaiting what comes next.
Aw, that was such a good video. Thank you, Pop Ghost. That was, I think, the best introduction I could have had. Now, this was made, obviously, from Taylor Swift. I think it's a good perspective I got. I think this person was really being great with the words she was saying, and also said, you know, there was one moment where she said, yeah, maybe Taylor didn't do everything right, but the way media portrayed her and exaggerated things and just looked for every little, you know, mistake or thing they could criticize was not okay and not right. So I knew the media was like portraying her as like the girl that dates a lot. Like, I knew that somehow. I never thought about this, but you kind of hear it. I don't know where. You hear those things that are like really popular about artists. Just, I never thought it was this bad. And this whole thing with Kanye, you know, I've heard some things. So now this makes a lot of sense, and this video helped me a lot to connect everything and to understand things better. I do know that there's a lot more to it, and there are different opinions. You guys are probably gonna have different opinions of some things that were said in this video, but I think that was a great introduction and to understand really the arc of Taylor Swift and her music path and career. But now I want to hear music. Now I want to hear music, or, you know, if you want me to react to some interviews or videos like this, I am open to this. But I do want to hear music, so please comment down below where should I start. Keep in mind, I do know her most popular songs, but not many. So you comment and I'll see if it's good to react to. Yeah, thank you for watching this video. So comment, like, and see you in the next one. Peace.